Hello everybody, welcome to Wired Unplugged, an all-new weekly gaming podcast from Wired Productions, premiering every Friday on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, everywhere a good podcast should be, really. And in the episodes to come, we've got award-winning actors, composers, producers, from the Wired Productions upper echelon to friends across the games industry. Jake Kulkowski here, a slew of special guests each week, would be joining me and my co-host Aaron Cooper, where we'll be talking all sorts of gaming goodness, what it's like to launch a video game, how do you compose the music to a video game, how do you sound like Geralt of Rivia. But before all that, we need to go back to where it all started, the Wired Productions lore drop for those uninitiated. So we're starting at ground zero. We're here with the Wired Productions co-founders Kevin Levers, Jason Harman and Leo Zullo. Hello, gents. Thank you very much for joining us. We've got a fair few episodes already kind of recorded. We've got a strong roster. We've got a structure. But this one's going to be a lot more freeform, really. And there we go. I mean, that just kind of goes... That's a little snippet of what you're in for, to be completely honest. So, yeah, well, we're here to talk all things Wired, and like I say, there's a lot of people who are really into video games who will know, you know, the publishers and the people who make the games. But for those that don't quite know, well, there's no better way to learn, is there, than the three co-founders. So, gents, first of all, would you like to give us a quick introduction to who you are, what you do within Wired, and where it all began?
Not
just a quick question to start with, really.
What do we do? We do everything. No, go on. Kevin, you go first.
I'll go first. Okay. Well, I'm Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. This is my first time here. I'm a senior producer at Wired. I help the guys with the production of the games, make sure everything goes nice and smoothly as much as we possibly can. And I help out with the production team.
You look at games, you evaluate games.
Oh, yeah, new evaluations and new games that we could potentially launch in the coming years.
Yes, he's also our office encyclopedia for games.
Yeah.
He has been. We've all got nicknames. He's the encyclopedia. This one's the oracle.
Leo, what's yours?
Yours? I don't really have one.
Not while we
everyone else has nicknames. You can't have a nickname. You can't nickname yourself. I mean, that's not right. So let's see. But you've done a few things, Kev.
Yeah. So that's me.
Oh yeah. Hi, I'm Jason.
Yeah, hey, Jason.
I'm the operations director here at Wired. I deal with a lot of the organisational stuff. Also work on the production side, so oversee a lot of the production. Legal, operations, IT, games, a bit of everything I seem to get involved in.
When you say operations, not surgery.
No, nothing like that. I can give it a try if you want.
A bit of everything. Yeah.
I can't guarantee the result, but yeah, I can give it a try. I can use
I'll take a punt.
hand at Good luck. Just a bit of everything I seem to do here. Which kind of leads us on
to... leads to me.
You?
Yeah, okay. My name's Leo, also known as Mr. Z. Basically, I guess we kind of split the company into two focuses. We've got marketing, publishing, all the good shit on one side, and then you've got production ops and all the bad shit on the other side. I look after all the good shit. So I do all the...
We do all the work.
We bring the fame and glory and the money. You just kind of, we need workhorses, man. So you're the workhorses, and we're the kind of the glory boys, I guess. All joking aside, but marketing, publishing, business side, strategy. Used to do finance until we got an accountant, which was much better way of doing finance. Just basically going trawling around shows, looking for content, relationships, deals, people, direction, throwing up 50 ideas a week and trying to get at least one to land, which is kind of normally the structure for the last nearly 14 years. Well, lads, I've had an idea. Should we do this? And I get different responses.
Mm-hmm.
But you need the ideas, right? Without the ideas, you're kind of stagnant. So I'm the ideas man, I guess, or partly the idea initiator. Yes, that's it. That's kind of us.
It's incredibly pigeonholing to ask like 3 founders of a company their roles, because I think when you're starting a company, you're everything. So between you would have done a bit of everything. So I guess that answer was, kind of in line with that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how it started and how everything came to be?
Now, do you want the long version, which started in 2004? Do you want the slightly abridged version, which started in 2008? And do you want where do you want to go?
I think because we worked together, before Wired, we actually worked together for a number of years. We've actually worked together for almost 20 years. Is that right? It's something like that.
Kevin didn't have one hair on his face.
I couldn't get served beer in Los Angeles when
yeah. Jason still doesn't have a hair on his face.
Yeah, I can't.
But that's a different thing. So, but yeah, Kevin. Right, okay. 2004. Where there was a really up and coming British publisher called Digital Jesters, and we were flying high. And I was kind of involved in setting out. It's another story for another episode because it kind of went up and then it went crashing down and there was a massive nuclear fucking explosion. But it's a good story if you ever want to listen. But I think in February 2004, Kevin came for an interview. He was working at Game, came for an interview as a community manager or community guy, and he started and then pretty much did every role possible, from PR to community to all sorts, and then finally settling on being a producer, which turned out to be his best skill set. And then Jason joined in April of 2004. Not that I remember accurately any of these days or months. He was kind of came in as a technical department, and then kind of went into production from there. So, and then from there, we kind of went on a bit of an emotional and business ride, watching said company go down in flames. And from the flames, got taken over by evil investor, bastard type person who kind of came in and instead of saving the company, stole every fucking asset and fucked everyone up the wrong place, and put us in a really bad spot. And then, is this a PG, by the way? Are we got to worry about what?
It's too late for that now, isn't it?
All right, okay. Well, let's just say it as it is. Just keep it as it is. And we tried, man. The company was called Mercury. We tried really hard to make it work, but basically it was fraudulent people. We couldn't take it anymore. So I kind of parachuted out, and I said to the guys, there'll be a, don't know where, don't know why, don't know what, don't know who, don't know how, but there'll be a new company starting, and I'll give you a shout, and then let's see what happens. And then I kind of sent an email out to a whole bunch of people saying, I'm going to be, if you want me, I'm leaving, and if you want me, I'm going to be found on a beach in Thailand. So come and visit me if you want to sort of talk. And just as I send that email out, within a few sort of nanoseconds, it felt like nanoseconds, it was probably about 2 weeks, but it was like nanoseconds, a guy called Pelle Lundberg from Sweden, and from a company called Game Outlet. I have to say it in that order, and when you know him, you'll appreciate why. And he contacted us and he had an idea, should we just say that? So I kind of met up with him, and the idea was solid. He wanted 20 PlayStation 2 games made in about 5 weeks and with a budget of about 10 grand. And we said, you know what, we're up for that. We're up for that challenge. And I know just the people.
All with peripherals.
Peripherals.
They had a remit.
Oh yeah, of course.
Let's not undersell it.
How
difficult
it was. It was a little bit of a challenge, but then they threw in some. They wanted it peripherals based as well. So we kind of did. So said to the guys, right, let's do this. It's time to leave. So everyone left. Their paying job, even though it was fraudulent and hell and whatever, and ditched it all to work for nothing for 6 months from my kitchen initially.
And living room.
And living room, that's right, yeah.
You had the living room. I had the kitchen because I had to hold my tower into there.
You did, yes, you did. But you had more Bella. At the time, we had Bella the dog, my beautiful sort of black lad, R.I.P. Yeah, you had more Bella. So, there was an upside.
Whether I liked it or not.
Whether you liked it.
Okay, yeah.
You did. But anyway, yeah, so we kind of started. So they jacked in their jobs, took a punt, and we sat in a park, actually, after they decided that they were in on this journey, and we sat in a park working out our name. So, and I think we came up with Wired Productions while sitting in Castleberry Park.
I have a feeling we went through quite a lot of names.
I'm making light of it.
That's really for those that know us. Obviously, we actually spend a lot of time overthinking things sometimes, and just really getting involved. And we're very passionate about different viewpoints, and we have very different viewpoints on many things. And even on the name, I'm pretty sure that the list was hundreds of names. And then you were searching URLs as this is back in the days when there was only a handful of top level domains, and we were searching for URLs that we could get that were available that didn't cost like 10 grand, and names that everyone worked for everybody, and names that meant something, or names that were clever, or puns, or I even think at one time our initials were going to be, or some amalgamation of our names were down as the name of the company. But we eventually settled on Wired Productions.
What were some of the beta names? I'm kind of interested.
What?
The beta names, like what were some of the names that didn't make the cut?
I'm not sure that somewhere there isn't the file with all of these.
Probably got a file, yeah. I can't remember now.
But we tried all those silly things like Phoenix and that had already existed. Yeah. And then there was references to the past, but we'd been through quite a lot of names with the previous companies anyway. And the other thing is those names you put in your creative je ne sais quoi into making those names. And so you've kind of run out when you have to do it again after the third or fourth time of coming up with a name for a company. So there wasn't just Digital Jesters and Mercury, and there was
Turtle.
Myriad, and there was all the Turtle. We had a whole bunch of either brands or we had Turtle Games. Yeah. We had a whole bunch of. Yeah. There was even ranges, puzzle ranges or something, but so we have somewhere there's a long list of names, but none stuck.
Yeah, and so it's like naming a fourth album. You've already kind of I guess everyone gets into that sort of. What's the connection with the razor blade? That's a really striking bit of imagery. Yeah.
To be honest, before just to finalise the name, the production side is because the work we were doing for Pella would have been production work.
Production, yeah.
So it was a change from what we were used to by doing publishing. So we kind of wanted to say it as it is, and we were doing production work for them. So that's why Productions was in the name, and Wired. Blimey, I don't know why Wired now. I can't remember.
You did what?
Can't remember Wired. Why Wired was part of it. I know the razor blade part, which I'll say, but I can't remember the Wired.
Isn't it not linked? To be honest, it is linked, isn't it?
Yeah,
Wired. Yeah. Wired, not as in wired and wireless. And for those that don't know, yes, this is a razor blade, because we do actually now go to shows, and there are young, as in lots of people entering the industry who are really young and have no idea what this shape is. And we've encountered it where our business cards are actually this shape too. And when we've given them over and they go, "Oh, that's cool. What is it?" And you look at them going, "Really?" But then obviously in the era of cool people who can grow beards and don't use razors, and even those who only use disposable like Bic or Mac 3s or whatever they are, they don't know about this as a razor blade. So yes, it's a razor blade, the old school razor blade though, which is kind of owed to where it came from.
Yeah.
But
that's the floppy disk scenario, isn't it? Save icon,
Yeah, exactly. It's like those things that people nowadays just know that as the as the thing it is today, not what
Yeah.
it used to be.
People, younger people looking at landlines, wondering why people needed the hashtag in the 1990s or something like that. Exactly that sort of situation. Okay, so
The official line is that we are cutting edge producers.
very nice. Okay, is there an unofficial shareable line?
There is an unofficial. Yes, there is.
Shareable.
Shareable. It is
Okay.
shareable.
All right.
I mean, my motivation was we just walked away. I'd walked away from about 250 grand of owed money. A fraudulent bastard of an investor. Everything about this house of cards was just shit, and I'd given it all up, and wasn't particularly liked person in the industry because of that escapade and that era. So this razor blade was basically a fuck you to anyone that come close, because I'm going to cut you.
Okay. Some Peaky Blinders.
It was a very angry, two-fingered up.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I am angry. We are angry. Don't come near us. We're going to do things our own way. Fuck you.
Well, it's a very punk rock attitude to have about starting a company. And I mean, you mentioned a Swedish gentleman there that I think people who are kind of in the industry know where you could be going with this. So everyone can get fucked. That's the unofficial line. The company started on a bench. I didn't know if you meant like a kid's bench, like a kid's play area, like on the swing set deciding, or you meant like a nice
Like spies
scenic
meeting with newspapers.
that adds something to it. No, like a duck pond, it's scenic, we decided. And then how does it go with Pella? What's next?
Pella, yeah, we kind of pitched. We got the contract. We started working, and the brief was to make, because like I said, gazillion PS2 games with peripherals. And when we started working on it, it was kind of the same sort of time when Wii was kind of blowing up, and we kind of pitched it. Listen, there's no point just doing PS2. We should move into Wii at the same time, which was a really good move. And then after a few months, I think we'd done about 4 games, 2 dance games, and 2 racing games. We kind of came up with the idea of Wii Sing, which was kind of a karaoke game for the Wii. But the innovative thing was that it was going to have 4 microphones, which is the first time a singing game had 4 mics. So we went for a pitching process where we had to sort of build the case. And I remember we came up with I think it was about an 80-page report study, which we had to deliver it not in Stockholm, in bollocks, where's that where they come from? Karlsruhe? No. Karlstad. And we had to deliver it in Karlstad, and we were working all night, and we finished, I think, about 4 or 5 in the morning. And Kevin took me to the airport. It was like with this document, the Bible. You know what I mean? We have it. You know what I mean?
We should explain, because they hadn't come from publishing and funding games background. They were box shifters, as in they
were distributor.
So they and Overstocks was kind of their area.
Yeah.
So they were just putting their toe into the area of actually making games, publishing games, and actually selling their own games, as opposed to getting games from all the other publishers in the industry. And so they didn't necessarily understand the process, what went into making games, how long it takes, all because they had kind of just got the finished products each time. And because they had a remit of saying we want peripherals on all of the games, hence the reason for a driving game meant there was a steering wheel. A dance mat game obviously meant the dance mat, and the reason for pitching the singing game was because the 4 mics was the peripheral that needed to go with the singing game. And as Leo said, it was just at the point where the Wii was just about taking off. It was the new platform. I know now everyone knows it sold 100 plus million units but back then it hadn't quite got there. And I think that the opportunity, we could see the opportunity. We did a report and pitched it to them, and thankfully they signed it off.
I mean, it's also, they started the company Nordic Games Publishing at the same time they reignited it. So we were kind of the production team behind Nordic Games. So they had sort of sales and distribution and everything else, and we were sort of production and PR and sort of the back end team. So signed it off, and we then had, I think, 5 months to make a singing game, including licensing and manufacturing and fulfillment and shipping. And I think we managed to do it, and it sold absolute shitloads of units, which is kind of, good. So
Spawned a franchise.
it spawned a
Yeah,
franchise.
so I don't know how many, 9? Does anyone know the number?
No,
About
it was
12 or 13.
It was about 12, 13 titles
did,
in the end. Because I
yeah.
remember working on all of them.
Yeah, they spawned a franchise. We sing everything from licensed versions of artists to decades to genres of music.
We sing Down Under.
Yeah,
Australian
so
one.
even
Yeah,
country-specific
German,
versions.
Yeah, we did do well. We did well.
And you consider
yeah.
that to be what the first sort of Wired Productions title officially? Then, or there was a slew of like 20, you said. So
I mean, that was the first. I mean, we produced for THQ. Sorry, for Nordic. Pella and Lars obviously, who kind of owned. We produced, I think, about 40 products for them under the Wired sort of relationship.
I don't know how many games. I don't know. Looked how many games do you think we've worked on together?
With
No,
Nordic.
just generally. It's a number that I don't even know off the top of my
We're
head.
100 plus.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, my surprise around about the 100 mark.
So just to kind of put it into some perspective, we have
That's 100
worked-
plus under this iteration. Before,
there have been a lot. Whether it been production work, we're working in the background,
Right.
whether we're publishing, or the previous companies, we've worked on a lot of different and it ranged every genre going. Everything from your strategies, your races, peripherals, the first-person shooters. We've had everything, puzzle games, the full works.
The 100 figure, is that number of titles or number of SKUs?
No, I think that could well be
probably.
titles. I might go with actually, not SKUs, because nowadays SKUs, you can have lots of different language versions, lots of different platforms of the same game. But
right.
no, we have worked on a lot of titles.
If it's not,
It's immense.
It's got to be close, yeah.
I think to summarise Wired's life, I think I think it's easy to describe it as 3 chapters. Chapter 1 was the Nordic Games publishing, startup, we sing, production kind of phase, where we were exclusive to them. We did everything, we literally, it was just a tight relationship. And that was kind of in my mind, chapter 1, and kind of chapter 1 to chapter 2 was I think 2012, 2013, when they kind of, We Sing had done, I don't know, 30 million, either euros, I think it's 30 million euros, I don't know how, some astronomical number. And they were very successful off their own bat, and it kind of gave them momentum to start acquiring assets, which I think the first 2 lots of assets were THQ assets and Jowood assets. And then that kind of took them into a whole new direction. They had a team because they bought Jowood and, went down a particular more sort of hardcore route. So that was chapter 1. And then we kind of transitioned. So we had all the tech, the music tech, and all this great relationship with music licensing. And music really was part of the DNA anyway. And we also had a period where we had to survive. So we kind of started working. We extended the tech, the products, the music games that we were doing. So we started working on The Voice of Germany, Voice of Spain, or La Voz, it was called. So we did a whole bunch of work for hire projects, music-based projects for other people. So that was kind of what I call chapter 2 in my mind, where we kind of did whole sort of production work. So we were producers for hire, so we're a production house for hire. But really, the vision, I'm going to say the collective vision.
Go on.
Yeah, the collective vision was to move into publishing, because publishing is where we had come from and really is what we were good at, as well as production. I mean, the production experience that we'd learned in the first chapter 1 and chapter 2 was fantastic, because we wanted to move back to publishing. So we started with a very small game. Tiny Troopers. We had what happened?
Someone gonged for that moment. It was kind of like chapter 1, dong.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It was
the
a
right
little
moment.
a chapter break, yeah.
Yeah. We went at a show and found, because obviously we didn't have a pot to piss in, and actually really what we should say from when we started Wired 2008, where there was some really hard rules. You know what I mean? We don't borrow money. If you can't afford it, you don't spend it. Our word is our bond. If we say something, we do it. Every bill has to be paid almost instantly. Just a way of doing business that I think as Jay said, we kind of overthink things sometimes, but it was really important that we, especially for me, because my reputation was in fucking tatters. So it was kind of, arguably for right or wrong reasons, whatever. But it was a case of this journey is going to be done by the book, man. I mean, absolutely, and beyond. So we worked double hard with Nordic Games, and we don't work triple hard. It was a case of we're looking after you like it's our money, like it's our games, everything about it. It was like, you're part of the family. We're going to fight for every single red cent, and that kind of attitude went forward. So when we almost collapsed during chapter 2 because we kind of ran out of money. We didn't have the contract, and we had to streamline down from, I think, 12, 13 people down to 4 or 5 of us, 6 of us.
Good job we didn't just sign a lease on a new office.
Oh yeah. We did just sign a lease on a big office. It was a little bit painful, but that's it. We kind of pushed through, just worked triple hard, and so when moving into publishing, we could have just borrowed stack loads of cash of people and just song and a prayer it. Do you know what I mean? But we didn't. If we could afford to pay for it, we would pay for it. So our first game, I'm not going to go into details disrespectful to the developer, but it was cost effective to us. We signed Tiny Troopers 1, Tiny Troopers 2, which were 2 mobile tiles. Yeah. And we kind of stuck them together, ripped out the free to play mechanics, added some bells and whistles, and put it out as our first game on PlayStation 3, 4, and Vita. And I did it right. It didn't do millions of units, but it was great, But and that tiny bit of money we kind of reinvested, but we were still doing little bits of work for hire. But we were kind of just trying to earn enough sort of coins to put onto the next game, and and it was kind of a bit of a slow process because you have to work and turn. So, but it was we didn't borrow a penny, and we did it the hard way, and it was the hard way.
So you'd say that another pivotal title really is Tiny Troopers then, because there's especially if you're sort of work for hire, you would have seen a lot of games come and go, but music seems to run all the way through this story and kind of spoiler alert, knowing where we're at now, music is a really big part of that. But Tiny Troopers is another very pivotal game in the story then, ultimately, right?
It is a big game and pivotal into the story, and there's also still is part of the story. We took it from every format going. We took it from, again, when we can afford the Xbox version, we did that. We could afford the Switch version, we could do that, and then we did a few other bits along the sides. And now from 2013 when we signed it, 14 when we signed it, 8 years on, or just under 8 years on, we've taken over. We've signed the IP, not taken over. We licensed the IP, and we have Tiny Troopers Global Ops in production, which is our own. So we've moved on to the point where we actually funded the whole development, start to finish, as well as licensed the IP. So and it's our own money. So we've kind of gone 8 years, and it is kind of a pivotal thing. I mean, it's pivotal.
Yeah, there's a lot more to come on Tiny Troopers. Through weeks and months we'll learn more about it, but it's very interesting to hear that. And so I mean, Nordic Games and your relationship continued to go. And I mean, for anyone listening who's not quite aware, I don't know if the story continues, Leo, or you want me to kind of get people up to speed, but they found some small success, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of they did. They went on into a meteoric direction, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Our relationship is pretty good. I mean, we're kind of, anecdotally known as part of the family, and they are, and we are. And I think when you've gone through quite a close, hard-working, blood, sweat, and tears moment, for quite a few years, that kind of sees you good. So, I've got nothing but respect for the guys. They've done brilliantly for us. We've done our best for them, and
They do seem to own about half the industry now.
Well, yeah. Just to spell it out for the audience at home that might not be in the industry or sort of aware of anything past just the games on the shelves or whatever. Nordic Games is now Embracer Group, and its subsidiaries valued at about, I think it's like 10 billion or something silly like that. So and yeah, they seem to buy more companies than I have hot meals. I think it's at least once a week they're buying something. So there's a lot of hustle when you're working and turning, and I suppose this would be a little bit different for the each of you, but maybe. I don't know if you want to anchor this to like a release specifically, or maybe it's a year, a date, a day, I don't know. But was there a moment where you realised like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be another sort of Digital Jesters Mercury. We're not going to have to cut this one loose or walk away, and we're embedded, we're here. Was there a moment like that that's you want to share?
I mean, I've got to be honest. I think it was from day one. I mean, we've gone. For me, it's we've done nothing but fight for about 11 years of our existence. Like really fight to the point.
Not with each other. He means fight for a cause.
Yeah. It's always below the neckline. So, it's just been a long battle. It's just been a long battle, and people kind of. I don't know. It's just been a long, hard battle. In terms of, we came close to the wind a few times of just having to shut. I mean, that's the reality of it. But I think, but when you fight so hard for stuff, when it, you can't. We could have walked away. Any one of us could have walked away. It's not been an easy ride. So, and to be honest, we've only, and even. I mean, if I speak candidly, are we having a candid moment?
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah, we kind of we worked on. We had a product called Close to the Sun, and managed to secure an Epic deal. It's when the Epic shop kind of opened,
Very nice.
and managed to get a good deal, which released the pressure valves almost instantly, almost overnight. It was almost an audible, physical, visible. If we could have cartoon comic sort of steam coming out of ears, it was that kind of moment. You know what I mean? And and that kind of sets up, because all of a sudden when it was guaranteed. I mean, the money wasn't around for a long time, but it was the knowledge that it was going to happen. Like I said, we've only ever been in a situation where we only spend money that we have, or can only commit to money knowing that it's coming. Yeah. So if we would never get into a situation where we would, gamble on people's money. But the fact that this we knew this was coming. Yeah.
There is something I want to ask, which I think would be good for people to hear as well, because how long have I known you folks now?
Quite a few years, man.
Yeah. And Leo, you've said something profound that I always end up saying it to other people just because that makes sense. You have a saying which kind of runs through the DNA and backbone of Wired, which is about if you're going to use a cow.
Yes.
Do you want to share that and what it means? because the thing is, I think people think game development, you release a game and then, everyone's rich and we all have Ferraris and all of this. But, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to actually make a product as successful as it can be. And I think it kind of starts with your mantra.
Yeah. I mean, there's two. I mean, yes, I'll go for the mantra first, but there's also just actually, they're around to do publishing. Anyone can say they're a publisher, right? Anyone can say that, but really you have to do it justice. So what is a publisher? Is someone that can really ultimately make a game that a content a developer makes successful. So that's really what a publisher should be, whether it's through promotion, advertising, whatever the metric. But it's also through business development. It's through community. It's through physical. It's every single aspect. And we can't. Every step that we took, we learned a new skill. Whether it was let's master PlayStation, let's master Xbox, let's master Switch, let's master retail, let's master this, and we've built the hard way without a penny all the base foundation skills that to be a publisher, to be a publisher proper, and it's through hard work, not through the fact that we can instantly buy a company or instantly buy a database of people, or we got lucky. Because most of the developers that, I'm not saying they're lucky, most of the developers that have become publishers because they had a hit, and that one hit has given them 1 million consumers. And really, they don't know fuck all about publishing, but they've got 1 million, they've got 1 million people. So, we've done it the other way around. We learned the skills of publishing the hard way. And it's kind of almost, it's very similar. If you're going to, so I have a motto. So if you're gonna kill, a cow, an animal, you've got to be really respectful to that animal, right? You've got to use every single part of it. You've got to use the hoof. You've got to use the tongue, the ears, the skin. I mean, you can forget the intestines. You can probably ditch that, but you know what I mean. Most of this animal, you have to kind of, it's disrespectful if you don't, right? And it's in the same way, whether it's money or the job that you're doing, Kevin can do, I don't know, he can do he'll record his VO. We should be in there recording that VO session, or, you have to maximize every single aspect of development, publishing, PR, sales, cross-sell, cross-promote. Do not waste anything. Don't waste a penny. And to be honest, even on money, I hate the kind of marketing people that kind of rock up and say, yeah, man, what's your budget? Which is the first question. Anyone just for your record, if anyone does that in an interview, sack them off, mate, because they're shit, right? So the hard, learn how to do marketing, or learn how to do your job properly, and then the money is kind of a different scenario. But yeah, you should. You don't kill a cow just for the filet mignon. You know what I mean?
That's a very good mantra. I was trying to see if there was some sort of vegan alternative, but again, I think we're past that.
if you're gonna make tofu, you use the
yeah. This is what I mean. I couldn't think something broccoli stem. I gave up halfway through.
Yeah.
To be honest, it doesn't work the same, does it? Not quite the same cut to it. So there's people are going to hear over the next few episodes, few weeks, when they start speaking to some of the people involved, that there is all sorts of aspects to sort of video games in general, and I think that hopefully people listening, even as just like a gamer, will be able to understand that, because I think just to get everyone listening up to speed, like, we're all embedded in the games industry. It's like our day job, so there's things that maybe we not take for granted, but yeah, it kind of becomes normal to us now, doesn't it? Audio production, and like what's a product manager, how does that work? And we'll learn all sorts of things like that, I guess, over the coming weeks. But there's a lot on for Wired this year, and in general it sort of goes outside of just production. You guys on about production, publishing, and things like that. There's a lot of music stuff. Is there anything sort of on the way that you guys are cooking up that you can mention a little bit that's exciting to you? It's not so much like a bit of propaganda here, maybe a little bit, but more. Is there anything that's happening within a company that's exciting? Because yeah, you're wearing a lot of hats and you're moving around a lot with these sorts of things. So what's happening?
Well, I think the first thing is the number of releases that we've got this year, which are how many?
Too many.
Keeping us busy.
Very
busy.
I think we've got over 8 or something is scheduled in for this year. Even starting from is it this month?
Yeah, first one, 27th of Jan.
Yeah.
And it was almost one a month going forward, or something close to that cadence. And we're looking at, and that's a lot. Normally in games, for the moment you actually start making or publishing a game, the actual period and the work that goes into it is often a year, 18 months, maybe 2 years before it actually launches. And then for all of them to come one after the other so frequently, that's a lot of work, because to the public, you often you see a trailer, you might see a little bit of a story somewhere about a game, but the game is being worked on by a team of people. The developers work so hard on the games throughout the entire time, especially towards the end. And then when it finally releases, that's almost the halfway point for the publisher, because now a lot of the stuff has to happen and has to be pushed to make the game a success and to manage it and to continue with the content updates. So developers done the bulk of their work, but now it's the publisher's turn to actually do a lot of the work. And that's why we know that with so many releases so quickly after one another, there's going to be a lot of work that the team has to do. And this is where this relates to the experience that because we've done it so many times before, you hope that at least the basics we're going to get right, and we can make sure that we can build on that and continue and keep releasing game after game each month. But there's a lot that goes into it, and it can be draining as well, because you do put literally everything into it for this big launch, and then it's not over when the game comes out. It's literally the halfway point for us. So yes, there's a lot of work coming this year.
Yeah, and I mean, there's everyone's kind of, when we're in it, we're all kind of bored of it now because you hear about it all the time. But in case people listen to this months, years later, like you say, games are in the works for a very long time, and they're all happening at once. And the roster, the stable of games that you've got this year, have all been getting worked on all aspects of it during a global pandemic, which has surely affected things like in an unprecedented way. Have you found any sort of challenges regarding that? Or I mean, you all work well, not all of you, but there's certainly a lot of people from Wired that work inside an actual office space. Did you find it was like super disruptive to sort of move away from that? Or, I mean, it's not quite a kitchen and a bedroom now, is it? But still, actually, sometimes it is a kitchen, I suppose, if you're working from home, to be honest. So
yeah,
you get that.
Basics.
Yeah, it was a living room. I didn't have kids at the time when I was working in the kitchen, and now they scream at me every time I have a meeting.
Yeah, we've all been there on that. Have we found any challenges? Yes, is a simple answer. I think anyone that hasn't would be lying, because the productivity is a lot harder. Everyone knows just to schedule a meeting to discuss one simple point is so much more work and effort than just walking over, or even just shouting across the room, or just going over to speak to someone in person. But everything from hardware, in the games industry, all the hardware can be very specific. And we've been having to ship equipment around to different people if they're working from home. And even something as simple as morale. When before, you could have a laugh or a joke in the office, you could have go out to the pub or go out for a meal together. Suddenly, all those things have gone. And I know there was a period where everyone tried to do quizzes and do kind of calls which were more sociable, but now we're 2 years into sort of pandemic, and those have all disappeared. Well, certainly ours have, and I think a lot of people have. Even the family ones have kind of stopped. And it's now you have to find a way to get on with it, make it work. But yeah, productivity slipped, and that's why. And same with, we haven't mentioned, but we're only as good as a lot of the developers we work with, and they're working so hard. And we have developers all around the world. So we've got, ones in Australia, Italy, UK, a couple in the UK, and we've got, and having to, those teams that we have to liaise with makes it that much harder when not only you're dealing with different time zones, but now you're at home, or a lot of us were at home at times where, as Kevin said, you're having to balance the fact that, okay, I need to do a call now at 8 o'clock at home with the kids screaming at me, and it needs to be an important call with the developer, and I can't have my team with me, or it's harder to get my team because everyone's got to be scheduled into that call. And we have found it hard. And a lot of those teams, sort of our developers, had the same problem where productivity slipped, and it's meant that the games have been delayed. And that's very common in the games industry, where if a game's not ready, and it's something that we've learned again the hard way, if a game's not ready, then we need to give it more time to develop, more time to improve, more time to grow, and more time for everyone to get ready. So we haven't, historically, we have maybe pushed out a game when it hasn't quite been ready, and publishers still today, or developers, those that self-publish, still do this, where it's like, let's just get it out and start fixing on the fly.
Patch it day one.
Yeah, but also sometimes there'll be key features or key bugs which just crash the game entirely on day one, and it's a bad experience for everyone. And then you're fighting, you're chasing your tail, because you're not only having to deal with angry customers, but you're also now putting pressure on your development teams to say, look, you've got to get this finished, because we're going to, everyone's getting angry, everyone's returning the game, or whatever the reason is, that you've got to get them to work more. And the developer's already exhausted from spending, as I said, up to 2 years working constantly, but certainly in the last few months, probably working, this is reality of the industry, 12-hour days towards the end, and they've got not a lot left. So, yeah, the pandemic caused some delays, and what we've had to do on some games, we've had to say, look, let's just take our time to give them more time to be developed, to get better, to improve. And that's why that the releases have also kind of stacked up on top of each other. But it's again something that has come out from working in this very different time of a pandemic.
Just to give it a perspective, we released one game in 2021, and it was supposed to release 4 or 5. So that's kind of the COVID impact. We had at least 30 to 40% loss of productivity per developer, or per team, including ourselves. And so that means this year we've got the 8 or 9 releases, which is, the kind of the ripple effect of COVID. So but yeah, we just got to deal with it.
In just a few weeks, you'll have beat that. Well, so certainly equaled out that number with one launch. You got Avicii Infector coming to VR, which is a very, I was going to say, an emergent platform. It's been around a long time, but it's just finally catching on now because of, I suppose, MetaQuest sales have gone up and up. So the story starts with music, peripherals, and things like that. And I guess that's where, for now, contemporarily, that's kind of the closest thing next. So it's a nice full circle.
It is. We love our music. I mean, to be honest, it's a testament, because we have a shop, we have an online shop, and we kind of, it's evolved. We started off, we were just putting anything on there just to stock and all that, but now we've kind of realised it needs to be cool stuff. So it's just like collector's editions and whatever, but also vinyl. We've gone back to vinyl, man. So we for the last, I think, 4 or 5 games, 6 games, they've all had a vinyl. Even Shaq Fu, we released a 7-inch of Shaq Fu's, tune, Close to the Sun, Deliver Us the Moon, Grip. And obviously, sorry?
Falconer?
I can't hear with this.
Falconer,
of course, yes. It's hard to hear. So, yeah, Falconer's got one coming out, and so music's a big thing. And also, I mean, to be honest, without sort of saying too much, because it's a point. We're toying. Probably will happen. We're toying, more than likely going to happen, with the idea of setting up a record label to deal with to bridge the gap between video game world and music world. We've been working on an album for Arcade Paradise, which we will kind of unleash soon, and that could be the beginning of something super cool. Just to keep that full circle, circling in.
Absolutely. So, it's again, Arcade Paradise is something we'll be learning more about very soon, specifically the music. But yeah, it's something I think that's definitely gripping people more and more. And I think as a musician working on a video game now is something just as exciting and as movie soundtracks. In fact, a lot of the time the projects are longer. They're well paid and they're consistent. A lot more music than you might first think gets done by British musicians. Like the Assassin's Creed soundtrack was done here in the UK and things like that. And those scores are just huge. Like having to rent out spaces and orchestras and everything. Now, there's been it's a far cry away from like SID chip 8-bit sort of Super Nintendo stuff. So music and video games is something that I think it's just that there's a natural thing there. So it's really exciting to see that music has kind of been there the whole time.
We did make the Crazy Frogs game, and it sold millions of units. But all the money was stolen. So is that a good thing?
But as an interesting thing, it is interesting. It's like, oh yeah, a lot of people go, I know that because it sold millions and everyone remembers it. But I don't know whether we said enough about the developers, because ultimately a lot of the time it is their content that we're publishing.
Yeah,
But we did have we do still have. We push the developer forward just as much as anybody.
It's always been developer first.
Yeah, no, but we haven't said that.
We haven't said that.
And it's the same when, a lot of times in the history, we've worked with teams and we've worked with the same people repeatedly, because when you find a good working relationship, we certainly found that many a time on many projects, there were teams that we consistently worked with. We haven't mentioned anything of...
Because, and this is a testament, we have worked with, we worked with the same team for We Sing for 13 projects. We've worked with Nosebleed now on 2 projects. We've worked with, we've worked with who?
We've worked with Epiphany.
For multiple projects.
Yeah, multiple projects in a lot of years.
Yeah. LKA for two projects now, Tanalite and Martha. So there's and with a developer who perhaps we're not working with, because that will come out soon. It's not because they didn't want to, we didn't want to. It's because going back to the point of we spend what we spend what we have, and their budget for the sequel went up. So we couldn't hand on the heart sign it with we're going to prayer to try and get the money. Didn't want to do that. So, but the idea was there to work. So, working with good developers is important, and relationships actually with developers is super important, because if you're going to start working on a project, for example, Martha, which is over 4 years in development, you need to get on. You need to get on with people. You need to be able to break bread. You need to be able to drink, fart, smoke. We draw the line at sharing wives, but most of the things are, we have well, sometimes, and then and you have to get on well with people, and that's important. And I think on the production side, the fact that I joke a lot. But on the production side, it's meticulous. It's meticulous. It's supportive. It's I kind of bark. I want more, but the more actually does happen. And we in some cases, but also with the developers on board. So the fact that they're willing in most cases to work on stuff is kind of
I can imagine there's a natural, there's a loyalty there on both sides, of course, and if you get used to people's like workflow, personality, just like how they are genuinely, and one product, if you want to talk about it as stoically as that, after that ends, and it makes complete sense, doesn't it, to collaborate for another. I can imagine. So it's great to hear that, and we'll be hearing a lot from sort of developers and that sort of thing on each project as we get on, so we can really get an understanding of different aspects. But I think there's a lot of aspects of publishing and production that, like I say, your average listener, viewer won't really know about. So I think it's a very insightful conversation, gents. Thank you very much for taking the time to say hello. We'll have you back, maybe. We'll start with Vici that next time, and we'll see how far we go. A full circle.
Cool.
But So what I'll do, I'll cut that there, or we'll get them to cut that away. And can I just ask, all three of you?
What?
Saving Our World is Saving Our World all three?
No, but it started on Wired's time and Wired's time.
I see. Okay. So Saving Our World is a UK charity that if you're in the games industry, you would have seen the ambassadors at events, pretty much lovely people all around. But this has also got connections to Wired. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, actually, at the timing, we're in January, and it was pretty much 5 years ago, almost to the day, when it kind of, the idea was kind of conceptualized. In that we wanted, there was a group within Wired. Aaron was part of it. Kim, Al, Big Al, Neil, myself, with the blessing of the co-founders, because obviously it was with co-founder, it was with Wired money and time that we were kind of working on Safe. But we decided that we felt that we needed to do more for the industry and for gamers, to protect their mental health and to get the dialogue going, conversation going about mental health, and to destigmatize and to offer support and all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of started about 5 years ago. And it took about 2.5 years of work to get it to the point where it became a thing. And eventually we launched it on the 10th of October, 2019. And since then it's grown and it's become a behemoth already, which is obviously a testament to the fact that it was needed.
You should say it is a registered charity.
It is, yes, sorry. Yeah, and that's why it took so long, because they weren't going to just give out sort of charity status to anybody. So we really had to work hard and went through the hoops really to get it right. And we're still evolving, and we're still in kind of start phase. But yeah, Safe and Wild is a UK registered charity, really dedicated to the games industry and to its gamers. And that kind of started on Wired's kind of time. And I think eventually when we pitch tent and start smoking cigars and drinking, brandy and sort of, reminiscing of what we achieved, I think, as a unit, that was a big achievement for Wired, and really happy that we're part of the journey.
Something to look forward to. Again, Safe in Our World coming up in just a few weeks. So there really is an answer for everything from me here regarding that, isn't there? I feel like I've said that about 10 times, but that's what we've got on deck. So thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate you taking the time to let everyone know the Wired lore.
Okay,
straight from the cow's mouth. Still alive.
At least you eat well with a cow,
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
most people do.
yeah. I was like, but yeah, a nice one, guys.
Wired Unplugged.